Hello, hello. How is everyone doing? Hello, I hope you had a great weekend. We're back riding, baby. It's time. Hello, everyone. How's it going? How's it going? How is everyone doing? Lantern Valley, huzzah! We got Lantern Valley in the chat. Hey, Tario, let's go. Forsen, let's go. How'd everyone's weekend go? Did we get any good riding done? Do anything really cool? JP, hey, glad to be here. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad to be here. It's gonna be a good evening. Good evening. Hope everyone's doing well. I got some good stuff to share with you guys today. First off, it's going to be a nice chill stream. Part of the plan today. Nice chill stream. We're going to be doing some writing. We are going to be talking about a couple key points that I think a lot of people are about to sort of hit in their novel. Going to be talking about a couple key points there. I'm going to show you an example of what I call, Katie, hello, what I call non-linear writing. And I'll show you exactly what I mean by that, how I do it, why I do it, things like that. And then maybe I'll start with a little story about something that happened recently. I think you guys will find funny. So on the road where I live, there is a campground. Hello, Jeff. Hello from Atlanta. On the road where I live, there's a campground, and the road that goes past this campground is very heavily wooded, right? Very heavily wooded. And the other day, my wife and I were driving into town, passing down this road with the campground. Hello, Margot! Passing down this road in the campground. And we're not very far from our home, but Random Rider, hello! My wife slams on the brakes. We skid forward a little bit. And she goes, I just saw a bear. We are always on bear lookouts around our place, because it's always exciting to see a bear at a distance. So she's like, should I turn around? Should we go see the bear? And I was like, yes, let's go back. So she goes forward, she turns the car around, she comes back. I'm in the passenger side. We pull up to where she saw this bear, right? I roll down my window and I say, hello, and then I start whistling. Bear, hello. Start whistling, trying to just get it to poke its head out from the trees. It's in this little clearing where the campground does a lot of, like, they just did a bunch of construction. They dumped a bunch of dirt there. She's looking around. We're both looking there. I'm whistling. I'm like, hey, come here. I'm doing some more whistling. And then out from the woods stomps just like a random guy. And he's like, hello? And I'm sitting here like, hey. He goes, can I help you guys? I was like, we thought you were a bear. And he goes, nope, I'm just Brian. And we're like, okay, well, we gotta go. And then my wife peeled off the gravel up the road. And I had never been so bamboozled by my wife as her baiting and switching me with a bear and Brian. All right, bear and Brian, not the same. So I just felt so stupid whistling to this guy, like, hey, hello, whistling to him. Was not a bear, was just a dude who worked at the campground who was offloading some dirt or something. Dang, Brian, I tell ya. When your wife says, I think I just saw a bear, she might just be talking about a four-wheeler parked in a clearing. That's the takeaway. Don't sit around whistling at an imaginary. Felt so stupid. I was like, let's just get out of here. We did not see a bear for the rest of the day. Tough. We did see a bunch of deer, so that's always fun. Shout out to all the Bryans out there. Shout out to the Bryans. I take being called bear as a compliment. He was just like a normal guy. He wasn't even like a big hairy guy, just like average dude. Swear. Sometimes you're just set up by the ones you love. You're just set up to fail. Let's see what else happened. What else happened? We went into town, that same drive, went into town, and I did some writing at the coffee shop. And I wanted to talk a little bit at the beginning of the stream about a concept you hear me mention a lot called non-linear writing. Let me know in the chat if you've heard me talk about non-linear writing before, because it is a fancy name for a very simple concept. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by that. Random Writer says, are you in New England? You seem like a New England guy. Maybe I'm in Old England. Maybe I'm in the newer England. The newer England. The new fancy sparkly one. I'm not in New England. All right, so non-linear writing. I want to show you an example because it's a fancy word for something very simple. You probably, I don't know if you all already do this, but it's something you should be open to doing. All right, so I have my Scrivener file here. I hope you guys can see. And as I've been writing this scene, when we last left off on Friday, I was writing the scene where the body is found in my novel. And I feel pretty good about that scene, right? So I have this whole scene that I wrote exactly about how this whole thing happens, setting up some themes that are going to pay off at a later point, kind of establishing some character moments. And then I had the scene that follows, which is going to be a pivotal scene in the book, but in concept, it is the cops here who had to go out in a boat to fetch this body in the water, bringing it back to shore, townspeople bombarding us with questions. We get a few key concepts in the book that happen, but as I was writing it in this coffee shop, I just kind of wasn't feeling it. I started writing it. I was like, I don't really quite know exactly how I want this to happen, but I know what needs to happen. And you probably have a lot of moments where things like this happen in your story. It's very natural, right? So what I did, let me zoom in a little bit more here, is I had started writing this, and then I just stopped and I said, I don't want to sit here and struggle over a scene where that I'm not excited about writing. If I'm bored writing it, if I'm trying to figure it out, if I'm frustrated, if I feel like creatively I'm drained and I'm trying to write this scene, it's going to come through in the words that I choose and the way I write the scene. So I just threw in a note here. I started writing the scene and then I stopped and I just kind of summarized what I needed to happen in the rest of the scene. Get the body off the boat and into the SUV. The cops were able to get the body covered and in a bag. Rumors start where people asking if it's the missing fisherman, something we haven't encountered yet in the story. The body's put in the SUV, is taken over here. There's this special moment that happens between the sheriff and the mayor. That's going to be the spark of this sort of controversial cover-up that's happening behind the scenes. Adam is tasked, who's my main character, with moving the crowd of all the permanent residents, but they kind of don't listen to him because he's just a seasonal cop. Another big thing that's going to be coming up in this story. So I said, here are all the things this scene needs to do when I do come back to edit it. But if I try to write it now, I'm gonna get demoralized and stop writing. I'm gonna write a scene I'm not happy with. But let me just make notes, and then I'll just move right on to the next chapter. I know where this story's going, so that's exactly what I did. And that is the idea of non-linear writing. Like I said, simple concept. Don't sit there and struggle over one scene. Don't hit a brick wall. Don't hit your head against the wall, all because of one scene. You know where the story needs to go. Make some notes, move on to the next scene, keep that momentum up. That's non-linear writing. All right, we got Lantern Valley says, I'm writing one of the few climaxes of the story before writing any of the rest of the book. That is not the same. Same, you know, you could apply the same term, non-linear, right? I talked about it in one of my videos. Whenever I'm thinking of writing a story, one of the things that I do is I think of all of what I call the movie trailer moments. I think of the story and I'm like, man, I know there's this really cool scene that's going to happen. Here's the imagery of this dragon bursting through the castle wall. Or here's this moment of betrayal that's going to be really impactful. Or this really tender moment in the romance of the story. And sometimes, I haven't done this before, but I've considered whether or not it would be a good idea to try writing one of those scenes before I do anything else in the story, just to sort of see, like, can I get all this stuff out? Are there elements of characters I want to spend more time with here? Like, it doesn't even have to be, like, the finalized thing. But I think that could be an interesting exercise to try at some point. I didn't do it with this novel. I didn't do it with Starlight Farms, but it's something that's worth considering. Before we get too far, this stream is sponsored in partnership with Pro Writing Aid. Pro Writing Aid is what I use to edit my stories. You see me running it on my computer. You see me using it in the live streams and in the videos. Pro Writing Aid has been sort of in my corner since we started. I reached out to them because I already had this lifetime subscription, and I was like, I would love to partner with you guys. And they were nice enough to sort of give me a shot. And you know what? That was at 1,500 subscribers, and today we hit 11,000. So I have grown with them. They have been in my corner this whole time. It's because of this kind of partnership that we can run this live stream without a bunch of ads throughout the entirety of this thing, bombarding you in the middle of writing time with something, this, that, or the other. So shout out to Pro Writing Aid. You can use my code WritingTheory10 using the link below at checkout to get 10% off. Let's go. Other thing, if you are super invested in your Novella November story and you want to try to really bring it to the next level, I do offer book coaching and developmental editing services. You can check it out at my Writing Theory website. That's all I'll say about that. And then I hope we have a good time today. That's all the foundational stuff I got to do. Let's go. Very cool. Does anyone have any revelations, any cool story things that you want to share? Any questions that have come up while you've been writing over this past weekend that you want to talk about? Now is the time before we do some writing and just chill out. What do you think of that? Hit me with your questions. While you're typing those up, I will throw that right there. Margaret says, not fiction again, but I was published again today, and my first true troll in the comments. Just here to chill. Margot, it's the internet. There are some things you are in control of. There are some things you are not. Yeah, it happens. It happens. I get some really crazy comments on the YouTube videos, even months after they've been posted. Margaret says they've learned to see the positive of it all. They gave me the most engagement out of any user with all their yelling. Sometimes it do be like that. I don't respond to any of the troll stuff. I don't respond to any of the troll stuff. All that stuff only has the power that you give it. Otherwise, it's just words on the screen. Lantern Valley says, it's best to ignore prose until late because it's so easy to make it better compared to anything else that needs attention while writing. Prose is easy to make good. Okay, so this is all in response to Dayswaller saying the parts are greater than the whole. Wait, where are we talking about prose? Let's see what else we got. Katie says, I finally figured out what I'm going to do with the fight scene. Fight scenes are interesting. I'm going to do a video on fight scenes in the next month or two. Right now, I'm like a month ahead on videos. Today, I finished up the most high-effort video I have done yet. I'm very excited to share with you. It's the last video in November. So I'm a little bit ahead, but very excited to share it with you. It's all about the quest and how every novel has or should have a quest. It's going to be a good one. Kara says, how do I introduce a new character who's supposed to be monumental in my main character's internal conflict and to push her to change her way of thinking? There's a lot of stuff to unpack in that because there's a lot of things that we don't know, Kiera. But I will say a shortcut. Well, first off, let me take a step back. How do you introduce a character? The first thing, make it appropriate in the sense of like, When you encounter a new character, it should be in a place where you naturally should. It shouldn't come out of nowhere. It shouldn't immediately be blown over. Usually when a new character is introduced, a lot of times in story, there will very soon after be a problem that only they can solve to sort of show their value, like in the party. You see that in a lot of times with a lot of movies. I don't know if that applies to your thing. But also another thing to keep in mind when you're introducing a new character that's, you say that's supposed to be monumental to your main character. I don't know in which way, but one thing I really like to do when I'm introducing new characters, especially if they have a reputation, is to focus on how other people react to that character, because that tells the reader a lot of stuff. You know, if we introduce a new character and the narration says, this guy looks strong, our reader's like, okay, that guy is strong. But if we introduce a character who's strong and then other characters around us are like, oh my God, it's this guy. He single-handedly did this and this and this. Wow, he's known as the boulder or whatever the case may be. That carries a lot more weight. So the way that characters interact with each other, even when it doesn't involve your main characters, can be a very useful storytelling technique. So maybe you can find some way to work that. Random Writer says, I'm currently playing a duology, and one thing I find interesting is how much a story has naturally changed over time. It's completely different than that of even 2 weeks ago. I totally get that. And that's okay. We want to keep ourselves flexible even when we're planning a story. For sure. Because a lot of times you discover more about your story that there is no way you could plan for. And for me, that's almost always in the terms of character interaction. Having two characters that have really good chemistry that you discover in the writing process means I want to put those two characters together more, develop that relationship, and then maybe I want to split them up later and make them really want to be back, right? Some things you just can't plan for. Keep yourself adjustable, flexible. Your story will always look completely different, but it's still your story. Lantern Valley says, prose is just something that came to mind. Margot, Kira, you can set up a scene with something, main character values. Love it, love it, love it. Great comments, great supportive community. By the way, our Discord is at 400 users as of today. That's pretty sick. That's pretty sick. It feels like just, I guess like a month ago I set it up. This has been a little bit longer than that, but it feels like a month ago. And I was expecting to get like 15 people, maybe 25 people to join the Discord after that first video where I announced it. And we got like 50. And it was very cool and humbling. And then the community's just gotten better and better. It's really interesting because, so I like plug the Discord in just about every video that I do. You can always tell a direct correlation between how well a new video of mine is doing with how many people join the Discord over the weekend. Because I put out my videos at 4 p.m. my time every Friday. And then it's like, oh, no one joined the Discord this week. This video must have bombed. So funny. Or a lot of people joined and I'm like, wow, we must really be reaching like a new audience. That's really exciting. So if you're not part of the Discord, come hang out at the Discord. It is a blast. Honestly, the Novella November story workshop that we have right now with everyone posting their updates on, I wrote this many words and I'm at this part of my story and yada yada, has been really cool to see. I went through today and I opened up everyone's little story workshop and either dropped a comment in there or just read through to sort of see where everyone's up to date. So I am rooting for you all. We are getting towards the middle of November. This is when your motivation starts to wane. Don't let it wane. Any Waynes in the chat? Shout out Waynes. Don't let that motivation don't let that motivation fall. Very last thing I want to talk about before we do some writing. Very last thing. If you are like me, you are likely at the part of your story where you are approaching Act 2. If we look at it as like a traditional 3-act kind of thing. If you are just getting into the middle 50% of your story, right? We got past the inciting incident. Now we're in the middle. and we have to do a lot of stuff before we get to the climax. A lot of times, I've found that newer writers, this is where it's make or break. This is where you had a lot of planning for the inciting incident. You know where you're going for the climax, but everything in the middle, that's the hard stuff. If you are at that point, the number one piece of motivation I can give you is to look at that middle 50% of your novel, to say, here's where I am and here's where I need to go, and to break that part of the journey into at least 3 main events. Okay? 3 main points of progress, 3 main things that need to happen, 3 main checkpoints. Ideally, each one of these kind of is like raising the stakes and moving our characters closer to the climax. But I've found breaking up that middle 50% of the novel into 3 major points is a great way to take a 50% of your story that you got to figure out and break it into, hey, I just have to write the next 10,000 words. Here's exactly what needs to happen here. And then after that, it's just another 10,000 words. Here's exactly what needs to happen here. Breaking it up like that, in my mind, really helps me. So hopefully that helps you too. All right, what's the last things we got in here in chat? Day Swallower says, doubled my word count for the weekend. I love it. That is awesome. That is huge. I did not. I did write a little bit. I'm at 11,273. Let's update. 11,200. So I got about 1,000 words. It was a chill weekend. Justin says, wait, I need to switch accounts. Evil Genius says, I work too much now to make the progress I used to. I get it. You know, when I was writing Starlight Farms, which I have right over here, to whip out as a product placement, link below, which we are going to do a huge deep dive into this book in December, just FYI. When I was writing this, I was getting sometimes 5,000 words a day when I was like super motivated and really focused on writing. But that doesn't happen every day. Sometimes you're like, I got 300 words. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay. Every time you sit down to write mentally, that's a win. That's a win. Katie says, I'm struggling to balance this project with my schoolwork and other commitments. Spent the weekend dancing, so didn't have a ton of time. Life happens. Life happens. That's it. Jade Lindsay says, hey man. Hello, Jade. Hello. All right. We are about to sit down and do some writing. We got 20 minutes on the clock. Can everyone hear me? I see my OBS went down for a little bit. Can everyone hear me okay? Let me know in the chat. Yes. Thank you, Katie. Thank you. All right. Here's the deal. I don't have any super fun games to kick off the stream like I did last week. Today's just like a chill. Let's do some writing. I want to get like... I'm shooting for maybe 2,000 words today in our live stream. That'd be nice. So we're going to do it. So here's the deal. 20 minutes going on the clock. Music going up, microphone going off. You know the deal. I will see you all in 20 minutes. Do some great writing. Justin says, leave a like and subscribe. There is a very cool noise I recorded myself on guitar that plays if you subscribe. Wow. All right, 20 minutes going on. Let's go. See you then. It's that easy. It is that easy. Look at that. We were just productive for 20 minutes. I love it, man. I love coming back out of that and being like, it felt like I was only gone for 5 minutes, but also I wrote like 1,000 words. You know, that feels good. How'd everyone do? What's your progress? Saw that we had Ray Guns in the chat. Ray Gun, hello, hello. We also had Miss Blogger join us. Hello, Miss Blogger. Welcome, welcome. Random Writer says, I write like 6 sentences. It happens, but you know what? That's better than 0. I got to 12,003 words. Got about 700 something. Alex Watchman, hello, hello. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you here. Welcome to the party. Welcome to the party. How'd everyone do? Oh, man. I got my Brandon Sanderson Hoyd shirt on for any Brando Sando fans out there. JPB 250 words. Ray Guns just joined with 11 minutes left of the cycle. Just did some light editing. That's progress, baby. That's progress. That's as easy as it gets. That is progress. Jade says, I did almost 2 sides of an A4, but my handwriting is quite big. Oh, writing by hand, Jade. Writing by hand. Bold move. Bold move. I get like I wish I could sit down and just write in a notebook for a long time. I've tried. I just get the gnarliest hand cramps. I've tried changing my writing stance like a bunch of different ways to try to like relax that palm muscle right here. Can't do it. I can write for like 10 minutes and then I can only write in like 30-second bursts before I get major cramps. But you know what? There's no better way to plan out a novel than just sitting down with a piece of paper and starting to write. I love whiteboarding. Kiara says, did not get to write, but figured out my next chapter. Hey, you got to figure out your chapter before you write. Some people might say. Lantern Valley says, I work at a bakery, and we have a regular customer that looks a lot like Brando Sando. Are you in Utah? Might find him. It might be him. Might be him. I write mostly by hand. Oh, Lantern Valley Jade, look at you too. That's crazy. I like the idea of writing by hand, but I do not like the idea of at some point transcribing it onto the computer. I feel like I would have to. Justin says, did I tell you that I ended up listening to Ice Planet Barbarians on Audible? It's free if you have an account. Oh, well, what's the review? What's the rating? Let us know. Did you learn anything you're going to apply of your own writing? And you know what? If you end up liking it, you got like 15, 17 more books of that series to read. Katie says, have to head out. 20 minutes of productivity. Goodbye, Katie. Thank you for joining us for what little time we could have together. Always happy to see you in the chat. JPB, I've always wanted to try writing on a typewriter. You definitely should. There's plenty of typewriters out there that you can get that are fairly cheap. You can find plenty online that, you know, maybe you're going to go 60, 80, 100, 120. Or you can find in a thrift store one like I have and just pick it up and put a little oil in some of the gears, follow a little tutorial to tune it up, buy a new ink ribbon, and you're typing. It is very satisfying. Lantern Valley, when transcribing it to a computer, it's kind of like doing a second pass. Hey, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah, Raygun says, prefer writing with I respect writing with hand, but prefer the speed and flexibility. Yeah, I mean, there's no way I could ever write as fast as I type. And I'm not even like the fastest writer out there. You know what I'm saying? Random Writer says, writing on a typewriter is all fun and games till you make a mistake. That's my secret. I don't make mistakes. Though I do have the ribbon. I don't know if you've seen it before. So like You get ink ribbons, and that's what actually like the letter slams down on the ink ribbon to transfer that ink to the page. But you can get a secondary ink ribbon that you trade between. So like if you wanted to write something in like red ink, you can do that. But also they have a way to go back in there and it like sucks the ink off of the page with like another special kind of ribbon. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. The typewriter's crazy, dude. It's crazy. It's cool. It is a lot of fun. And honestly, it's practical. Like, I don't even want to say it's impractical. It is fun. But also at some point, like, it's cool if you're going to give it directly to someone. But if you're going to be writing like longhand, like a novel, at some point you got to transcribe it all again back to the computer. I don't make mistakes. I'm going to make a video that's clipped from these streams. Not a single mistake in this stream. Name one mistake. Everything done with intentionality. Yeah, typewriter whiteout. It's a thing. It's a thing. So look at that. That's easy progress. It's easy stuff. Typex. That sound. You know what? I don't know enough to dispute it, but it sounds right. Day Swallower says 126 words and readjusted the outline. Love it. Love it. I think we're about ready to do our second sprint. About to do our second sprint. I got about 730 words-ish on my last one. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm writing a scene I wasn't really thinking I was going to do. But it just like kind of felt like an interesting thing to include. So I'm just rolling with it. See what happens. See what happens. I did pump out a whole page of 500 words on my own before bed last night. Ray guns, that's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, if you can sit down just for a little bit and write every day, you're gonna do it. You're gonna make it. Like, that's the hardest part of writing, is just doing it. Like, honestly, it's like it's hard to go to the gym. But once you get to the gym, you're like, well, I might as well like lift some weights or something. It's hard to stop everything, cut out all the distractions, sit down in front of the computer and then write. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to get here. But once you get here, hey, put 20 minutes on the clock, let's write. JPB says, I noticed you seem to go back and do your speech marks. Not intentionally. Not intentionally. If I don't fully know quite where I'm going with these two characters' conversations, I might slowly tease out the dialogue so I can like more intentionally guide it to the next step. But if I'm like in a scene and like I'm just letting the characters riff back and forth, that dialogue comes out really fast. In my case here, this scene that I'm writing at this point isn't quite like a locked in scene. Like, this was not part of my plot framework. But as I started going, I was like, you know what? Honestly, I need a scene where this dude goes and looks at the body with no one else knowing, so we can see that some things are wrong. And as I was writing, I just kind of worked it here. So not intentionally going back and changing any sort of dialogue things. You'll see in later scenes when I have two characters that are talking and I kind of know where I'm going, it all comes out very quickly. Someone asked, Alex Watchman says, question, do you consider each file on the side of your screen one chapter? Talking about these folders over here. The cool thing with Scrivener, it's kind of up to you how you want to set that up. The way that I'm going to try this one is we have Arrival as a chapter, and I'm just going to play around with this. I might be able to change it. But I'm going to set Arrival as a chapter. And then when I'm telling my Scrivener to compile my story, what's going to happen is I'm going to use these section types right here to say, like, right now it defaults to this value of scene. But I can basically tell it, like, take this whole folder called Arrival and make everything inside that folder my first chapter and separate the different files with little scene breaks. Right? So when you get to the end of a scene and you have like one or two lines and then the next scene starts. So it's going to feel like all one chapter, but we have these sort of narrative breaks. But that's something you can very easily change if I wanted to organize this and say these 4 chapters that I have in this folder called Arrival are a chapter, and I could set each one of these to be individual. So the question is, the way that I'm doing it, yes, right now, Arrival is a chapter, First Day is a chapter, but that may not be how it happens all the way through the novel. I may change this at a later point. But Scrivener lets you configure it. Random Writer's time to write another 4 sentences. If you start right now, you could get to 8. Every single day. Polly Owls Watchman says, do you personally think it's annoying or distracting to have a bunch of scene breaks within a chapter? The book I'm reading right now has long chapters with a bunch of scene breaks. And as long as we're sort of continuing like these same narrative threads, if we're around the same timeline, if things are like continuously happening back to back, they just use that book is called Reaper's Gale by Stephen Erickson, book 6 of Malazan, Book of the Fallen. That author just uses a lot of little scene breaks. Not distracting to me personally, but that's because that's just the author's style, and I'm 6 books into a huge series. In my case here, I may change it. You know, I may say that this first day, here, if I click on this manuscript, you can actually see Arrival. This, if I do consider this to be one chapter, that's like 5,500 words at its current state. And then First Day, as another chapter right now, would be 6,443. Most likely, I'll probably change the chapters. But for this proto draft, that's just an easy way to organize everything. So I'm going to keep going with it. So yeah, in final results, probably going to look a little different. Ray Gunn says, I need to get this program. I have a link in the description. Here's the great thing, Ray Guns. I'm not going to talk much about it. It's called Scrivener. It is sort of the de facto writing software tool. If you like to do a bunch of writing, I highly recommend you check it out. I'll sell it to you in 3 points. The first point is that it is a one-time fee, not a subscription. Like $60, I think, maybe 70. Number 2, it is great not just for creative writing, but any sort of long-form writing that you're doing. So like if you happen to still be in school, this is a great way to collect a bunch of notes and resources. You can use these. This is basically just a big glorified file system over here. And you have it forever, right? And as you keep growing being a writer, you can keep using this tool. It's awesome. Number 3, here's the kicker. Here's the kicker, Raygun. Number 3 is that if you go to the website, if you use that link in the description and go to the website, you can get a trial version. It gives you the entire program for 30 days. Doesn't even take like credit card information or anything. And that is 30 days that you open up the program and use it. So if you download it today and you want to go play along with it, if you download it today, and open it every day for the next week and then take a month break and then you open it up again, you've only used 7 days of your 30-day free trial. That's a pretty sick way to go about it. Whenever you do choose to buy it, they send you like a license key and you just type it in this little pop-up box in Scrivener and it unlocks it, and you can even install it on a couple different machines. So it's, yeah, I mean, like, I'm sick of the paid, $15 a month kind of mindset for stuff. Scrivener is like the industry standard. It's not industry standard, I wouldn't say, but it is one of the big writing tools for creative writers. Definitely recommend. Use the link below. That'd be sick. Give it a shot. Give it a shot. There is another live stream I've done at some point. I don't know where it is in this playlist that I have linked below, where I go through all those good points about why you should use Scrivener, what it's good for. Unfortunately, you might have to sift through like 18 hours of live streams to see it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? One day I'll do a really big video on Scrivener. Day Swallower says, does Pro Writing Aid work well with Scrivener? It does. I have it going right now. The new updated way to go about it is to use Pro Writing Aid's Everywhere extension. So you can download that off Pro Writing Aid, and then when you're in any sort of editor, you see this little icon I have over here. I could just say like, hey, I have this first chapter. Of course, I'm using it for spelling and grammar. But also I can go over here and I can run one of their reports. And I can say, you know what? Help me understand. Let's go look at one of these core reports. Am I overusing any words? It'll think for a second. It'll look at this. And then it'll say, hey, you use the word could 7 times. I didn't even know. And look, this is a 2,000 word document, 7 times. Maybe that's too much. Maybe that's too little. Now I have the information. You use the word feel or varieties of the word feel 7 times. I think is what it says. This is just one of those reports. Justin says, make sure you get paid for the Scrivener file. I got you. I have reached out to Scrivener before. That's how I got that affiliate link. But I'd like to do something with them just because, like, I don't really talk about many other writing tools unless I actually, like, have checked them out. I think they're a good fit for my audience. So, like, Scrivener hasn't paid me anything. I have that affiliate link if you choose to use it. But also, it's just what I use and I believe in. It's the same thing for that ProseWrite thing that's in the Discord right now. I played around with that and I was super impressed with the results, with the transcription, with the formatting. Very easy way if you've ever wanted to try dictation. Is that what it's called? Yeah, dictation. That like super easy. They have right now, they're having like this thing for like getting a free hour of transcription. That's hour of spoken transcription of you uploading an hour-long recording into ProseWrite to test it out. So that's why we have that partnership in the Discord right. So yes, short answer, Day Swallower. Yes, it works very, very intuitively with Pro Writing Aid. It has a very native integration. All right. Any other questions before we go? I will stop shilling. I will stop shilling in the live stream. All right. Then I think it's time. I think it be time. We're going 20 minutes on the clock. Microphone's going off. Live streams go, or lo-fi music is going up. Let's be productive. Let's go, everyone. Let's go. Another productive sprint. Good job, everyone. Good job sticking around, putting in the work, doing the time. Love it. Random Writer says, I wrote enough, but basically got nowhere. You see, that is the kind of feeling, that's the kind of feeling I get that leads me to do this sort of like non-linear writing. Like, I felt that same way when I was at the end of this scene, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna skip ahead to the next scene. I feel like I don't quite know how to like get this all out effectively. Raygun says, dang, it went by that fast. It's over already. That's what I'm saying. Who knew joining these kind of live streams, doing this productive writing, hanging out, like, it goes so fast. Margo says, still not finished my chapter, but I'm getting close. I had to write song lyrics. Margo, why stop there? Do the whole symphony. When you need something to slow you down, do the whole symphony. Do the whole, symphony the right word? What did Mozart do? Movements? No. Be the Mozart of your novel. Write a couple different orchestras. Reagan says, got about 600 words or so. I personally, I got about 600 words about. Yeah, feeling good. An interesting scene. And now we're getting to the, just stop it moment. I'm at the scene in my novel where my main character is like, hey, you said that when we found this body, it was an accident. We don't need to like talk about it. But I have irrefutable evidence that, you know, that this was malicious. And then bringing that evidence forward, he's just going to be shut down and told if he doesn't just stop it, he'll be sent back home. Right? So I'm building up to that moment, that confrontation. And then following that scene, we should finally be entering Act 2, where we have another interaction with another character, and we get past that just stop it moment, to the idea that like now I'm gonna have to be sneaky about how I pursue this investigation. And that's when we get to Act 2. That's when we get a bunch of that character interaction. That's when we get our love interest and our main character teaming up. That's what I'm excited for. Lantern Valley says, my main character got robbed by a spirit. Rip. R.I.P. R.I.P. All right, so we had, was it Justin, I think, who mentioned the accessibility text to speech? Yeah, so Justin, so when I met with the Pros Right team and we talked about their product, so there's dictation and transcription in terms of accessibility. Like, you know, a lot of that came from like, you know, the big kind of transcription kind of tool that's out there. Dictation is like, I think Dragon. I don't know if it's called Dragon Transcription, Dragon Dictation or whatever. But that's called Dragon. That's been around for like a decade and a half. But when you use Dragon, you have to do things like say open quote, close quote, period, exclamation mark, question mark, new line, things like that. And then accessibility, yeah, Dragon speaking naturally, yeah. And then like accessibility transcription, right? I'm gonna say this word. You're gonna the accessibility software is gonna make its best guess at what I mean and put it down. The thing with the Pros Right, I'll just say like here's just like 2 or 3 specific points that I thought were cool. The first thing is that it formats your transcription as opposed to just giving you a big, here is no line breaks, a big chunk of text. You can choose to get your text like that, but otherwise it determines where your paragraph breaks and your new line should be, and that includes when you're doing creative writing like dialogue. So like it knows every time there's a new character speaking, it looks at the context around that dialogue, puts it in a new line with any other lines that you have coming from those characters. And then let's see what else. When you're using Prose Write, just like initially, the very first thing to note is like, unless you want it to, like it doesn't change anything about your text. And if it has any questions about, you know, maybe you were speaking and doing your transcription and it thinks you said this word, but it's not sure. Any word that is not like very confident of what you said, even if it's like naturally this would fit here in this place, it highlights it in the editor that you see after it does your transcription, which doesn't sound big. Except you can also enable additional things to do further formatting and further cleanup, and like, you know, maybe we might speak and use filler words like you know or or anything like that. It's trimming all those out, of course. It has other little modes you can tick on where it's like, oh, you know, when we speak we use more adverbs than maybe we would when we're trying to write in a more serious manner. So you can enable additional features to further try to clean up your transcription. And anything that it changes or trims out or adds that it can show in the editor, it highlights it so you can very clearly see it. And I like that. And the very last thing, which you can do this in all your transcription stuff, but it has a really easy editor to say like, hey, I'm about to dictate a fantasy novel. Here's like my crazy weird fantasy names for my characters. You don't have to put in like the pronunciation. You don't have to do any crazy setup to say like phonetically, here's how you'd say this character's name, or like here's a recording of me saying that name a couple different times for the machine to learn. I had a character named Mel, M-E-L, in the transcription that I did. And so I typed in M-E-L as a character name, and then now I just transcribe as normal, and it knows when I'm saying the word Mel, this is the name that I've personally told it I'm going to be using as like a unique word that I've come up with that needs to be present in the transcription. No problems. No problems. If I used that tool and tried it out and then I wasn't really impressed with the results, then there wouldn't have been any sort of like Discord collaboration or anything like that. But instead I used it and I was like, hey, maybe someone would really like this. Lantern Valley says, make sure to leave in my ums with 3 M's and not the ums with 4. Dictation software, so I can't count. What do you think I am, a calculator? Oh man, you're making the whole suite of productivity personalities. This feels like, did you ever see that animated movie Food Party or something like that? There needs to be an equivalent for Microsoft software. Not every bit's a winner. So yeah, Justin, if you're interested in trying that dictation thing out, go use that link in the description. You get a free hour of transcription, so you can just I mean when I used it, I was outside walking around in like dry leaves and the wind. I had my phone recorder app and I was just talking. And I talked for 9 minutes, transcribed 1,000 words, did it flawlessly, with a couple fantasy words that aren't really normally present in like normal language. So I was like, hey, there's something here. There's something here. You can also tell it like if you are, let's say, you know, you're transcribing things for like hey, like I'm a creative writer. I can do that. But also maybe you just wanted to take notes. Maybe you wanted to have it formatted in a different style, maybe something closer to what you might do for like an academic paper. It has different sort of modes for that sort of formatting and transcription. And that's the last thing I'll say about it. Last thing I'll say. Sorry, everyone who's not interested in dictation and transcription. I'm done, I promise. Someone asked about Scrivener before. Who was that? Oh, Mr. Slothman. Hello, Mr. Slothman. Is it possible to write a superhero novel? I'm about to blow your mind. Yes. Boom. Easy. Easy. You can look at the entire Steelheart, or I think it's called the Reckoner series by Brandon Sanderson. Great superhero novel. They're all over the place. Plenty of superhero novels out there. And then you wish you had Scrivener? You should try it out. Justin says, dictation is the only true way of storytelling. Historically, you might say there's been more stories spoken aloud than have been written down. It's a bold statement. Bold statement. Yeah, Raygun says they're working on a superhero novel. There you go. Right now, here's the deal. Right now, we're in like the revival of superhero stories. Of course, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has brought them to like a new heights. And of course, DC has, you know, even for the past 20 years, made them more popular. Of course, all that is the case. But then there's also things with like The Boys right now, hugely popular TV show. And I think more and more media is showing that like superheroes in a more grimy, gritty adult sort of setting, as opposed to like the squeaky clean silver era of, you know, comic books. There's a big audience for that. Deadpool. I mean, come on. So yeah, plenty of superhero stuff out there. Justin says, you're not illiterate, you're not a true writer. I think a Roman said that once. Roman said a lot of stuff. Tell tons of different stories in the superhero genre. Cinema's obsessed with grim, dark heroes or origin stories. Very true. You know, we go through all these different sort of genres. We go through all of these different sort of trends. But a lot of times, the trends naturally lead to like a different evolution of it. You know? And sometimes it takes kind of like a seminal work like The Dark Knight to be like, hey, gritty superheroes is like a thing that we can like, that we can enjoy, that can be popular, right? And then they take that and they're like, all right, now we need more gritty, more dark, more. And then you get to The Boys, right? Which is that TV show on, I think, Amazon Prime. And they're like, let's take that dark, gritty, adult style, like storytelling of superheroes. Let's bring it up to the nth degree and make it as crazy as possible. And you know what? That's probably going to lead to another slightly different twist on the genre that's going to become a lot of fun to see what happens. That's how we got to dark academia as a big trend right now. That's how we've gotten to grim dark as a genre in fantasy right now that's so big, is the natural evolution of kind of going from squeaky clean stuff to less so over time. And that's just an evolution of the genres. I love talking about that stuff. But I'll stop. Justin says, The Boys is that TV show on Pirate Bay. I've never heard of that website, Justin. Please explain. Lantern Valley says, maybe that's why so many people these days have given up on big cinema. I don't know about... So, like, let me say it this way. It seems to me, as an outsider, that film has evolved from the idea of making and trying a new idea in a small movie to only ever doing the huge budget thing. Which is interesting because I feel like books have gone the exact opposite way. When you think of like how the book market, the entire literature landscape used to be, hold on, we're chatting now. We're chatting. I'm building up to something. When you look at how the entire literature landscape used to be 25 years ago, the only way your story got out in the world is either you got published in some magazine that, maybe had a fair amount of readers, but more than likely, you sold your book to a publisher. and you were just in their hands for them to decide what to do with you. You were competing with everyone, throwing elbows, trying to get your manuscript into the hands of the right publisher. You send it out to a bunch of agents, send it out to a bunch of publishers. But then there slowly was the evolution of the idea of ebooks, and now the barrier to entry was way lower. Now with ebooks, if you could find the right platform to put your book, it was very easy for people to experience it and to read it, right? And then Amazon comes in, sniffs out the market like a hound dog on the trail of the escaped prisoner, and then it's like, boom, we're gonna monopolize this. And you can say, you know, it's bad, but they made the barrier to entry for you to put your book out in the world so easy. So easy. When we do our big breakdown for Starlight Farms Kindle for Talking Dogs, I'll talk about the publishing process as well for this, for self-publishing. What you need to know beforehand, before going in there. Things that I had success with and things that I had failures with. So in December, we're going to do a full breakdown on this book. I'll open up my Scrivener file. We'll do a whole expose. So if you are interested in that, you should also pick up a copy in the link below and support the channel. Let's go. The ebook's like $3, all I'm saying. I think it is. Maybe it's $40. Not sure. But the physical book feels pretty good. It's a good feeling book. Good feeling book. Good feeling book. All right. Has anyone here, in working on their Novella November book, put any thought into what you might want your book cover to be? I think that's always fun. Has anyone here gone that far to be like, I should start considering what this is going to look like? Margaret says, I've been very curious about self-publishing because it seems like it would be cool for me, but I'm worried my writing won't ever meet the skill standard. I think I'm decent enough, but not a master. Margot, I've read some of your stories. You have the skill. I've told you that. I've told you. You have the skill. You're a strong writer. You also have to remember, this, and it's a very easy thing to forget. Very easy thing to forget. When you read a fully published book through traditional publishing, you are not reading the work of an author. You are reading the work of an author and an entire team of editors, ranging from style and copy editing, looking at individual words, to developmental editing, saying, here's what your story looks like. Here's the trajectory of your character arcs. Here's what needs to change. Let's have you rewrite this part. It's going back and forth and is crafted and honed down to the story that you read at the end. Do not forget that what you read from traditional publishing is not one author who can write really well. It is one author with an entire team of editors to ensure that the product that comes out is going to be flawless. Self-published writers are not held to that standard. We are not held to that standard. Are there mistakes in this book? You bet. You bet there are some mistakes in this book. Self-publishing, that is okay. That is okay. I did everything I could to limit the amount of mistakes in this book. I used Pro Writing Aid. I probably read this 7 times over the course of editing. And the last 2 or 3 times I read it, it was looking at each individual sentence, right? And it was doing everything from like, is everything capitalized correctly? Am I spelling these words right? Or am I not spelling these right? Are all the names correct? You're going to put in all of your effort into making it as nice as you can because you're putting it out in the world, and that's okay. That's okay. There are authors, self-published authors. There's a book that I got off of a Kickstarter from a self-published author who has 15 books out, who got $100,000 in funding for writing this series. And you know what? I still caught like 8 or 9 typos in there. Did not change the reading experience at all for me. Just throwing that out there. Just throwing that out there. Just throwing that out there. Is there a skill standard for self-published authors? I think there probably is a pretty low one, a pretty low skill standard. When you pay money for a book, you are expecting that the result that you get is going to be something that makes sense. That's kind of the biggest thing. Like, if I was to buy a self-published book and I'm reading it and I see a word in a certain place that isn't supposed to be there, it's not really changing my personal belief in whether or not this is a good or bad book. If I'm seeing typos or very clear mistakes every couple pages, that probably will lead to an experience where it's noticeable, you know? And that may affect my overall feeling of that book. Well, I mean, what do you guys think? Is there a sort of a threshold where you suddenly start to sort of look down on a book if there's a certain amount of those kind of mistakes? Or does the story as a whole carry more weight than individual things like that? Are they separate? Are they separate in the sense that you can read a book, acknowledge that there are typos in the words or missed words or structuring errors, but still enjoy the story because the story itself is what you're in there for? You know what I mean? What do you guys think? There's a threshold. Oh, hello. By the way, hello. I haven't seen you in the chat yet. Hello. Is it Ulium? Ulium? Maybe? Hello, Ulium. I give a lot of leeway to self-published authors. Especially if I'm working with anyone in the Discord, you'll notice I never do copy edits. William, hello. I'll remember that. I never do copy edits in our Discord because, like, I'm not here to sit down and say you should have used this word over that word. I'm here to say, like, you structured your story this way and that was good, or you made this decision in the structure of the story and that was not good. You know what I mean? I could probably handle a book written like Discord chats. You are crazy. You are crazy. You are crazy. Yeah, I do not get bothered so much by typos, but there is a threshold. You know, they say good writing is invisible writing. You know, when you can just, the barrier between you and the story is at a minimum. And every time you have mistakes, you're adding a little bit more to that barrier. There is a point where the writing gets in the way of the story. And I've even seen that in traditionally published books. There's a book series that I really like. I think I've only read the first 2 books, maybe the first 3, called the Sun Eater Saga? Very popular science fiction book. Sun Eater. The way that the author phrases some sentences just does not connect to my brain. I will have to read it 5 or 6 times to figure out where the emphasis of the sentence needs to be. And it's noticeable. It probably happens 6 times each book, and those are like 800-page books. But like the deal is, like, I acknowledge that the story is what I'm here for. Lantern Valley says, I definitely have to be it'd have to be an extremely niche feel to it. Prose affects the way a book reads, but I'd find if that was expected, the way it was meant to be. Raygun says, currently attempting to bridge the front half of current chapter to the back half. That's a tough one. But that's what writing's all about. Margaret says, good editing philosophy. I usually skip spell check until late drafts on my published articles because I'm going to restructure and rewrite anyways. When I did my editing for this, you know what? Let's actually wrap up today talking about editing. When I did my editing for this, I'll tell you right now, proto draft, no editing. Just get as much of the story down as I can. From that point to the first draft is all about putting in the scenes that I knew were missing, adding details, changing details, building up certain things so that they pay off later, not caring a single bit about typos, about poor prose, about anything, about mistakes really. Just trying to get the story in its first state. Do not, for the love of God, do any sort of spell checker grammar editing on your proto draft. You are wasting your time. Do not do it. Do not. If you do, you're going to be doing that job twice. Especially in this case, for like after my second edit, you want to know something crazy? For whatever reason, I was like, you know what I need to do next? I need to rewrite the entire book. And so I did. I felt like my writing on the first draft was too direct and didn't have the kind of whimsical kind of feel. Not like over the top whimsical, but touches of that like whimsy of like, this is going to be like a book you can pick up and read and kind of feel like it's like a little magical. So I did a whole rewrite where I had my original, like my story in its current state on one side of the screen. And then on my main editor of my new draft that I was doing, I was reading through what I had done before and then kind of rephrasing. Anything that I didn't like, I was rephrasing, reworking. I was revisiting all the dialogue because I knew the characters so much better now and letting all that dialogue try to be a little bit more distinct. And anything I really liked from my proto draft and those first and second drafts that I had like fine-tuned, I brought over here and I just kind of touched up a little. Mr. Slothsmith says, how do you make a proto draft? I have a video on this channel about the proto draft, and it is the most important video I've made because the proto draft is specifically the thing that helped me be able to finish stories. The idea being that it is, what's the right way to say it? The idea being that every time I sat down to write a story, I felt like when I started writing, I was holding my writing to this higher standard. Like, oh, I wrote this chapter, I didn't like how it was. Should I even continue the story? Or I would sit down to write that book, this idea that I had that I've been planning for a long time, and I would start trying to write it at the very beginning of the book, and I would feel like this beginning of my story doesn't set everything up right. And I would get so in my head about some of the details that I wouldn't ever continue it. I might write a couple thousand words. I might write 10 or 15,000 words. But at the end of that, at some point, I'd be like, I don't feel like this is good enough. And that was because, you know, everyone always says your first draft sucks, and it's supposed to suck. And you're supposed to allow yourself to let it suck. But I always felt like the first draft was when my story was officially starting, like when I was officially trying to tell my story. And if it wasn't successful right away, I would get demoralized. Because I'm not about to spend 100,000 more words writing this story if I don't believe in it. So the proto draft is what happens before your first draft. It's sitting down and saying, like, I don't care about anything. The number one thing I need to do is to write, get this story down, get the details down, and get to the end, no matter what. Once I've gotten that beginning, middle, and end, everything else I can, you know, touch up and edit and make a little bit better and cut out these bad parts and reinforce the theme over here. But you have to start with something. That's what the proto draft is. Great video on that. Definitely check it out on the YouTube channel. I point a lot of people there. The proto draft is big. Raygun says, your first draft is a narrative in its purest form. There can often be scenes you write during the proto draft that define what the story will be at its core. Yes and no. Ideally, your proto draft has pretty much all the elements you need to tell your story. It has your first attempts at understanding your characters and building their journeys through the story. It has your first attempts at the beginning of your novel and the big climactic ending. It has all of the things that should be in your story, but it may not be all right. The proto draft doesn't ever really get into other people's hands. It is you getting the story out of your brain and onto the page so that later you can make it better. You can add the scenes that now you realize are missing, trim out things that aren't quite working, and then turn it into the first draft. And then that's when your first draft is enough of it is in place that you can share it with someone and they get what you're trying to do. That's an important thing. Margaret says, I find the proto draft turn to be something that helps people relax, but I do the same with my first drafts. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I say it in the video. This isn't a novel concept. People have, in screenwriting, people have used the term the zeroth draft. I was on a podcast with someone who called it the vomit draft. I've heard other people say it. It is like the, I feel like there's one more, I can't remember. But the idea is like, even though your first draft is like your attempt at starting the story, there's still a lot of anxieties that you can build up in your head about that. So if we can create a specific draft that eliminates as many of those anxieties as possible, that lowers that barrier to make it as easy to write as possible, your chances of finishing your first book go through the freaking roof, you know? That's big. That's big. All right. What's happening tomorrow? So, for anyone who can make it to the live stream tomorrow, it's a different time slot. It's earlier in the day. I think this is just like what's happening this week. This week is going to be more about productivity and getting writing done than it's going to be about having those big, doing a tier list for 30 minutes or playing a big game at the beginning of a stream. Unless I have a really good idea, then maybe we will. But otherwise, yeah. You can join this live stream. You can have a lot of fun. You can chit chat about your story, and you can leave here having written 1,500 words. It is the live stream tomorrow is from 12 to 2 Eastern time. 12 to 2 Eastern. 12 to 2 Eastern. That's 11 to 1 Central time, I believe, which is my my time zone. But yeah, same sort of thing. We'll see. Maybe we'll end up playing some sort of game later on in the week. Maybe a Friday stream where we do something really fun. I think someone said ranking bottled water. It's on my list. Don't you worry. There is a clear winner. And there are clear scams out there. The price is part of the judgment. We will get there. But yeah, all that being said, shout out to Pro Writing Aid. Thank you to Pro Writing Aid for sponsoring this video. When we talk more about editing, you will see that Pro Writing Aid is something that should be a core part of your writing toolkit. It's important to have some additional feedback on what you're writing. You've been using spell checker and grammar checker and Microsoft Word since you were a teeny tiny little baby. Time to upgrade those tools and learn how to be a better writer. Pro Writing Aid helps sponsor this live stream so we don't have to have a bunch of ads, and that's important to me. So thank you to Pro Writing Aid. And then maybe the next biggest thing, if you're not part of the Discord, come hang out in the Discord. And also post your updates in the Discord so I can see exactly how much progress you've been making. I love seeing it. It makes me so happy. I want to hear what you did. Dasani is not S tier, that's for sure. And that's all I got for you guys. So with all that being said, if you cannot make the live stream tomorrow, which is in that different time slot, I will see you at the same time on Wednesday. By the time you see me on Wednesday, I will be in Act 2 of my book. And we can talk about all those crazy things that happen in the middle 50% of your book. That's a fun part of the writing process. I will see you all then. Thank you for tuning in. I had a great time. I hope you wrote some awesome words. I hope you made a lot of great progress, and I hope to see you again. Thanks for hanging out. Goodbye, everyone. Have a great night. Take care. Take care. You're the best, and all that. All right. Goodbye.